I want to talk to you about Thanksgiving here for a little bit, because it's not about turkey. It's not about the football or the parade with the giant inflatables. That's not even the Thanksgiving parade. That's the Macy's Day Parade. It's a store reminding you to buy products, but it's part of our tradition now. All of these things, planes, trains, and automobiles is a tradition we watch. We're going to watch it next week. We watch the dog show. After the Macy's Day Parade, we have the dog show on as we're preparing, Thanksgiving meal, et cetera, et cetera. Those things we do every year, but those are ornaments on a much older tree. At its core, Thanksgiving is the American holiday that is supposed to force us quietly, maybe stubbornly, to confront the truth of who we are and where we've been. Thanksgiving started with a small band of people that had every reason under the sun to curse the circumstances that they had found themselves in. And they chose to give thanks instead. Half of them had died on the trip over, the Pilgrims. Half of them died on the trip over. Then the first winter comes. They were woefully unprepared. They weren't ready. And what of the half that was left, half of those guys died in the winter. Spring comes. They go to work. They till. They learn. They plant. They reap. They stored. And then, around this time of the year, after all that work was done, they stopped to recognize what happened to them. And they weren't celebrating abundance. They were celebrating survival. They were celebrating providence, that fragile flicker of hope that God had preserved them for some reason, unbeknownst to them, because certainly what they did didn't deserve that. And that's the real meaning of Thanksgiving. It's gratitude in the face of hardship. I think all of us have faced hardships, a lot of hardships recently, a lot of woe, a lot of trouble. That's what this is about. Get your family together. If your family has been through hardship because you're split on whatever it is, stop all of that nonsense. Stop it. Just say, hey, we've had hard times, all of us. We just want to get together and thank God that we're all still together. Gratitude in the face of hardship, humility before blessings that you didn't earn. A recognition that freedom, true freedom, always costs something. And Thanksgiving reminds us that our country did not begin with triumph. It began with humility and thanks. It's the one thing that calls us back to something older than politics, deeper than division. The idea that we are not held together by force, not by the government, not by the screens in our pockets, not by shared acknowledgement of our rights. Our lives and our liberties, they come from God. That's what brings us together. Not kings, not presidents, not parties, but our shared rights and the humility to be able to say, my gosh, what a miracle that is. And maybe the closest we get to that now in today's age is just the family gathered around the table. But even that is only the doorway. If we stop at the family around the table, we miss the whole point. Thanksgiving is the quiet confession that we are dependent on something much greater than ourselves. That America's strength begins not with the clenched fist, but the open hand lifted in gratitude. This year, remember, it's not the meal, it's not the game, it's not the dog show. It's not all the traditions that mean so much to each of us we piled on top of all of that. This is ancient. This is a simple act of people pausing just for a moment to say, man, out of this whole year and all of the things that have happened, we have survived. Thank you, God. Thank you for everything, even the hard things. It's maybe especially the hard things. Thank you. Thank you. It has shaped us into the nation worth giving thanks for. That's Thanksgiving. That's America. And for that, I am grateful. I am thankful. I'm also thankful for a good friend of mine who, Dave Isay, is, he's the founder and president of StoryCorps. StoryCorps has preserved voices of the American story for the National Archives, and he has been with StoryCorps. He started it. 20th anniversary of StoryCorps, I think, was 2023. And he comes on from time to time and he shares some of the stories. Welcome, Dave. How are you, sir?
Glenn, I'm doing great. It's great to hear your voice.
Yeah, likewise. Dave, you're going to share a story with us of gratitude and Thanksgiving. Do you want to set this up?
Sure. And that intro was absolutely gorgeous, Glenn. Thank you for that. Everything you said, 100% true. And we do have a tradition.
Wait, before you know what? While we're here, before we get into the story, I am so grateful for you. You are working so hard to get people to sit down with one another and just talk. They disagree, but just talk. Try to lessen divisions in our country. And thank you for that, Dave. How's that going?
Thank you. I mean, I listen to you preaching this every day in between the Jasmine Crockett talking about A. Jeffrey Epstein, and that was a great segment yesterday, Glenn. But you have a message that you're pounding to your audience day in and day out. We have to love one another. We have to show each other grace. We have to love this country. We have to love each other, or we have no future. And the Glenn Beck audience is the main conservative participant audience in this effort where we're putting strangers together across the divides to get to know each other as human beings, not to talk about politics. And I mean, it goes all the way to Michaela on your team reaching out to my team to do an interview. I mean, it's just like part of the DNA of the show. And, it is our patriotic duty to see the humanity in people with whom we may disagree. I mean, that goes to the heart of what you were just saying about Thanksgiving. And I'm so grateful for that. And we want every, we're here to talk about Thanksgiving, but every Glenn Beck listener, viewer, everybody in the community, when my team sees a Glenn Beck listener name come in to participate, they go right to the top of the list because they're the smartest, and you know this, Glenn, your audience, most thoughtful, heartfelt, nuanced, human beings. Yeah, I know you do. And you can hear that in the show every single day. So people can go to takeonesmallstep.org. And, look, it is unbelievably hard. I got a text from a guy who is like the smartest person on polarization in the country earlier this year. And he basically is like, the time for the work is going to come. Let's keep aiming for the stars, but it's going to be hard, and it's going to get harder and harder and harder and harder, but we will win. It's going to be trench warfare, but there is another story of America, and that other story is going to win. And Glenn, to have you as a brother in this thing, and I do only come on occasionally, but, I think we both feel pretty close to each other, and we come from, we came from different politics, but the minute we met each other,
we're like brothers.
We care. We're like brothers, and 99% of things we agree on,
Yeah.
So this is
crazy.
And we're living in an illusion. 90% of the country are sane. They're just like they're looking for a way out. Part of the exhausted majority, and we have these like loud, nutty voices on the fringes that are driving us absolutely bonkers. And it's not going to end well if we can't figure out a way to get people to remember who we really are as Americans. And it's it's everything you just said. And, and you say it over and over again, blessed are the peacemakers, and that's your audience.
Yeah. Well, if you want to get involved, please, you go to takeonesmallstep.org, and that's just you sitting down with somebody and finding the common humanity. And it is Michaela is still talking about it. She did it, 2 years ago? And she is still talking about what an amazing experience. Yeah, it was. Takeonesmallstep.org, and they'll fill you in on everything. So, Dave, tell me the Thanksgiving message here. Yeah.
Okay, so we have a story for you. So this is from, not from One Small Step. This is from regular StoryCorps, where we've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Americans come together, and really in many ways just to thank each other in these 40-minute conversations they have about who they are, what they care about, all everyday people, none of the nonsense, none of the BS, fringe crazy stuff that we were just talking about. So this is John Pruitt and Cecile Doyle. In 1958, John Pruitt's mom dies 2 days before Christmas. She's been seriously ill. He's in third grade. And his teacher, Cecile Doyle, is incredibly kind to him. And more than 50 years later, he decides he needs to write Mrs. Doyle a letter. So let's listen to John Cruitt and Cecile Doyle.
We talked
From
about
StoryCorps.
decorating the Christmas tree when I came home from school that day. But I walked into the living room, and my aunt was there. And she said, well, honey, Mommy passed away this morning. And I remember at my mother's wake, someone in my family came to me and said, Johnny, your teacher's here.
When I found out she died, I could certainly relate to that, because when I was 11, my own father died. And you just don't know how you're going to go on without that person.
When I returned to school, you waited until the other children left the room at the end of the day, and you told me that you were there if I needed you, and you bent over and kissed me on the head. It was really the only time someone said to me, I know what you're feeling, and I know what you're missing. And I felt in a very real way that things really would be okay.
Well, John, I really loved you as a student, and I'm so glad that I could be there with you for that time.
Many years later, when I became a teacher, I started to think more and more about you, and I started to think to myself, here I am with a memory of a teacher who changed my life, and I've never told her that. And that's why I finally wrote this letter. Dear Mrs. Doyle, if you are not the Cecile Doyle who taught English at Emerson School in Kearney, New Jersey, then I'm embarrassed, and you can disregard the sentiments that follow. My name is John Cruitt, and I was in your third grade class during the 1958-1959 school year. 2 days before Christmas, my mother passed away, and you told me that you were there if I needed you. I hope life has been as kind to you as you were to me. God bless you, always. With great fondness, John.
And your letter could not have come at a better time, because my husband had Parkinson's and he was going downhill, and I had just come home from the hospital and I read this beautiful letter and I just was overwhelmed.
Well, the funny thing is, when I finally wrote to you again after 54 years, I typed a letter. I was afraid my penmanship wasn't going to meet your standards. Well, after all this time, Mrs. Doyle, all I can say to you is thank you.
John, what can I say? I'm just glad that we made a difference in each other's life.
Dave, all of these things are being collected in there at the National Archives. 100 years from now, what is the American story? What do you think they'll see, when they listen to all these, what will they find?
Easiest question I'll get all year. You know, the facilitators, what they're going to find is the basic goodness of the American people, period. Every kind of person, every state, every occupation, every political persuasion, you know, the people who listen to these interviews, who facilitate the interviews, who work for StoryCorps, the facilitators, you know, they all come back. And if you ask them what they've learned, it's a version of the Anne Frank quote that people are basically good. What they're going to hear is the good. You know, a lot of people often say to me, you know, if Martians came down to Earth and they could only hear one thing, God, I hope they hear those StoryCorps interviews.
Yeah.
This is, and it's really who we are. And, you know, we're living in a complete, you know, reality distortion zone in this kind of hate industrial complex. And it's all a big lie. It's a big lie.
Dave, you should go to Elon Musk and have these StoryCorps all put into the algorithm of Grok. It might help the algorithm understand who we really are. And I want AI to like us.
Yes, exactly. I mean, look, I think AI would be much better with StoryCorps inside of it than without StoryCorps inside of it. So we're thinking hard about that.
Good.
We're on the same wavelength as always. And Glenn, I wish you and your family a fantastic holiday, and I love you a lot for you know, being in the arena with us every day on this thing.
I love you, Dave. Thank you so much. If you would like to get involved, go to takeonesmallstep.org, takeonesmallstep.org. It's so well worth it. And these guys just love my listeners, and they love you. And you'll have a great experience. Takeonesmallstep.org.